Here we have an Apple IIe that I just finished restoring. This computer was released in January 1983, making it 38 years old. It originally retailed for $1,395 or $1,995, which included a disc 2, a monitor, a stand, and the 80 column card, which that is similar to this configuration. This is not an original Apple drive, but it does have the disc 2 controller, and then this is a third-party joystick. So this setup, when this machine was new, would have cost around $2,000, which in today's money would be slightly over $5,000, accounting for inflation. So it's definitely an expensive machine. It did last the longest of any Apple model. So it was the longest lived manufactured model in Apple history for almost 11 years. It wasn't discontinued until November 1993. And a lot of that was due to the market of these being used in schools. So I'm going to just put in the Mac Computer Inspector here, which will show all the functionality of this computer working as it should. Disk is in, power it on. So the Minnesota Educational Computing Corporation, they made the Oregon Trail and a bunch of those other popular educational games of the time that ran on Apple II and other systems. So we'll just start the machine identification. We can see it's an Apple IIe with 64K of RAM. It's got the 80 column card in the auxiliary slot, and it has a disc 2 card. And then if we just do the disk drive test, we can see the drive speed. If we look here, the drive speed is 300 RPMs, which it should be between 296 and 302. So that is good and it runs well. I did clean the heads on this drive. And everything else works good here. We can do the joystick test. Let's see here, we can just center this joystick. And make sure the buttons both work, which they do. There's a switch on the bottom to reverse the top trigger button and the side buttons. Well, that looks good. So I made a couple discs to go with this machine. One really nice thing about the Apple IIe, or really any Apple II for that matter, if you're starting out with vintage computing, is it's very easy to create disks directly from the internet, or even boot software directly into RAM. So basically all you need is a device with a 1/8" audio jack. And the Apple IIe used to be able to load programs off of cassettes. So there is now a website, there's a game server and a disk server from ASCIIExpress.net. And this the game server allows you to stream games basically directly into the RAM of the system and then run them without even the need for a disk. So I can show you how that works. Here, if we reset the Apple II, we'll do a control reset, which will boot us to the prompt, and then just type load. And then over here, we'll make sure the volume is turned all the way up on the phone. And you could use a laptop, obviously, anything with a audio device. We'll choose what we want to load, which, not that. And then you can either do lo-fi or hi-fi. If you have a good quality audio cable, the hi-fi should work fine. So once that's at the load prompt, you hit enter. And then depending on what kind of IIe it is, you will either have a bracket prompt or an asterisk prompt. If it's non-enhanced, you'll have the bracket prompt. So this is a non-enhanced IIe, so we'll use the audio file for that. We'll play that. This is now playing through the audio cable, which is plugged into the back of the IIe into the cassette port. You can see here it's got about 17 seconds to go. Over on the Apple IIe, it now says loading Mario Bros. ETA 15 seconds. Basically, this is playing over the audio, similar to how a modem would transmit data or how this would work if it was coming off an actual cassette disc. So it looks like the audio file just finished, and now there we go, it's booting up. And you can see Mario's got the joystick, so you can actually play 2 players when you have the joystick and the keyboard. Yeah, the sound works well here. There were options where you can make discs for different programs. So I did that just to make a couple discs for this machine. I am actually going to be selling this IIe because I've already got a few of them in my collection. So I made a Pac-Man and an Oregon Trail disc to go along with this. Oregon Trail is a double-sided disc, so I did have to cut a little notch out of this disc. And then you can flip it over for the second side. Pac-Man is a single-sided disc. I'll turn this off. Load Pac-Man in there. Turn it on. Show you that that disc works. Reads it while the drive is nice and quiet. And then it asks if you want to use the keyboard or joystick. Everything's been tested here. I took all of the keys off, soaked them till they were grimy, cleaned all the key switches, verified that they all function as they should. Took apart the joystick, cleaned that. This system I'm going to sell with the Apple IIe, the Applied Engineering 5.25 inch floppy drive, and this generic joystick. The monitor is not going to be included. I just have that here to show that the system is working as it should. So basically what I'm going to do is move the monitor to the side here, and we'll pop the lid of this and I'll show what's inside and how the rest of this Apple II works here. Okay, so here's a more up-close look at the Apple IIe. As you can see, the keyboard is all cleaned. Keys work very well. They make that nice sound of an old keyboard. Lid is cleaned. The Apple logo here is a little bit faded. You can see what should be red is kind of pink. And it does have a little bit of yellowing, but nothing too major. You can see here how it's, this part that was covered up by that lip is probably the original color, and it's a little bit darker where it's been exposed to the sun. But nothing major. The little sides here are a little darker. Unfortunately, there is one cosmetic flaw here on the side. One of these little pieces of the case was snapped when I got it. And then on the back, most of the port covers are all missing. It was this way when I received it. I'm assuming somebody must have harvested them for another machine because it wasn't filled with expansion cards that would have used all those ports. But it's got the joystick port, it's got the cassette in and output, and then the video port. So that cassette input is what I used just an 1/8 inch cable with to connect to the phone. I'm not going to be including that cable, but that's a standard audio cable. This sale will come with a video cable to connect up to a composite monitor, so you can hook this up to any TV or monitor that has a yellow video jack if you don't have one of these vintage monitors, and then just a standard power cable. The joystick is a Suncom, definitely nothing too fancy, but it is a universal joystick, so it lets you switch between Apple II and IBM PC, and has both of the connectors there. And then a 5.25 inch Applied Engineering floppy drive, which has the warranty voided because I had to open it up to clean the heads. Somebody wrote for Apple II on the bottom of it. That plugs into the port here for the Disc 2 controller, which basically is really the only card in here. So the Disc 2 controller has 2 drive headers, and this one is connected to this 19-pin connector for the external floppy drive, and a second Disc 2 drive or connector could be attached to the second port if needed at any point in the future. It's got the 80 column card. One thing to note here is there's a little bit of staining on the case, and these wires here were a little bit exposed, so I wrapped them individually and then bundled them up to make sure they're all safe and nothing will short. There, the power supply has been tested, outputs the proper voltages. The speaker has been replaced, and this was this way when I got it. There's just a small little speaker here that is glued down that's plugged in, but it does work as it should. The original speaker normally goes over in that corner, but this system didn't have one. So that is the Apple II. I'll just bring it in here for a little closer look at the logic board. It was pretty grimy when I got it, so I ran it through the ultrasonic cleaner, and it cleaned everything up, and everything functions as it should. I tested all of the slots by using that disk controller in each one of them, and it worked. So that is that. I'm always sad to let go of machines that I spent a bunch of time cleaning up and restoring, but at this point I've got 2 or 3 other Apple IIs, so I really just can't justify keeping this one as well. And then, as I said before, 2 floppy disks will be included with this to give you something to start with. You can play a couple classic games. So if you have any questions about the machine, reach out. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe. I'll be posting a lot more of my restorations. Many of them are machines that I'll be keeping in my own collection, but occasionally I will have a couple systems to sell, as I end up with duplicates and not enough space to store them, and also doing it that way gives me some extra funds to support buying more vintage computers. Yeah!